Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, clerk of courts.
Good morning. I was hoping Judge Fitzinger, hopefully he'll be here momentarily. We're going to tag team. So by now you probably heard, if you haven't, I'm retiring and on May 3rd. May 3rd will be my last day. And
Congratulations.
thank you. I've been here more than 40 years. That's a long time. So good. I'm glad you're here. Perfect
So
timing,
am I.
Judge. So
That's never good.
we've had several other changes in our office. As of this week, a new financial technician started in our office. Jessica Bierman, who worked in the child support agency, she did financials for them. She now is in our office. And we were very happy to get her. I hate stealing an employee from another department, but at the same time, she's very qualified. So we're very happy to have her. So she started yesterday. And Kelly Enright, who is been the chief deputy since Michelle Kennig left, as of late yesterday.
We appointed her to serve the balance of Lynn's term. So the way the work of that position works, the 4 judges get to decide who gets to replace her. So as of
May 4th.
May 4th,
You can swear her in, or somebody can swear Kelly in.
as of May 4th, Kelly will take over as clerk of courts, and that's just to serve the balance of Lynn's term.
Kelly had previously announced that she was running for the position. About 2 weeks before that, she announced that she was going to run. She knew I was retiring this year at some point. So we have a lot of changes, and we're attacking them one at a time. So
I'm sure you will work it out.
We'll work it out. Kelly is extremely intelligent. She works very well with the public. She'll be excellent.
She'll do a good job for us.
And I'm sorry, I don't remember the years. Are you up for, is your position up for election this year?
Yes, and I didn't make it public, but my office knew that I wasn't going to run again.
Mhm.
And so Kelly and I had previously discussed her running, and she had decided she would. And then I told her I was leaving early.
Yeah, it's got right first.
Into the frying pan.
So I appreciate the board. I really do appreciate the support that the clerk of courts has always received from this committee. And I'm sure that you'll continue to give Kelly and the rest of the office your support.
Well, thank you.
You'll still have me one more month here.
Yeah, one more, but in case it doesn't come up, thank you for your years of service.
I appreciate it, thank you. All right.
Anything
Questions?
else? Questions? Thank you.
Did you? Oh, no, that was Kurt that had something else. Okay, I have something else.
Speaking of
I forgot.
Kurt, the DA's office.
Good morning, everyone. I put something on the agenda that's really pretty minor, but I thought it's something that is more in the terms of FYI that isn't always aware. There's been a lot of discussion about bail of late in the state, but one of the things is forfeitures, and two forfeitures occurred recently that it happened pretty quick, and I'll explain in a moment what that means. And I thought, we're doing this, we should probably just make the committee aware of that this stuff goes on. And when a person goes on bond, they either can be placed on a cash bail or a signature bond. And a signature bond is a promise to pay if they violate a cash bond. They actually have to post cash bail in order to get out. If they violate the bail, they can be charged with bail jumping, which is a common charge. I think we've talked about that you've seen how many hundreds of bail jumping charges we issue in a year. But if they also miss an appearance, that usually doesn't draw a bail jumping charge. It could, but it usually doesn't. But a lot of people are on signature bonds. The court forfeits their bail, and I'll let Lynn talk a little bit about that in a moment. But what happens in these two recent cases is there were repeated flagrant bail violations, just violating conditions of bail. It was mostly controlled substance and continued intoxication after some very significant events. These cases are in active prosecution, so I don't want to go through the specific facts of them, but so what we can do then is we can file a motion to forfeit bail. We have to make some legal showings, there's an evidentiary hearing, and if we are successful in showing that the bail was violated, then the court can decide how much of the bail should be forfeited. And then any bail that's forfeited, we usually only would file these if there's been cash bail posted, not these signature bonds. Then that money is forfeited and immediately goes through Lynn's office to the county coffers. And we had a couple recently, they're not huge. One was about $2,000 and the other was $2,500. But I thought this doesn't happen very often, but it happens from time to time, and it happened twice recently, and so I thought I'd just give you some information about it. And then, Lynn, do you want to talk a little bit about how that works on your end with signature bonds?
Sure.
And give us some numbers?
Certainly. So when a cash bond is ordered forfeited, it goes into an account, the amount that's due goes into a certain account. And also when a signature bond is forfeited, if someone doesn't show up for court and they have basically either a cash bond or a signature bond, a judge can order the signature bond forfeited. That amount also goes in. Unfortunately, CCAP does not let us separate those, it goes into one. So I can tell you how much money we've collected in the last 2.5 years or 2 years plus this year for that particular account, which is all under bail forfeitures. It's cash bail forfeited and it's signature bonds that's been ordered forfeited that we've collected on. In 2020, we collected a total of $12,420. In 21, we collected $32,764. And so far, in the first 2 months of 2022, we've collected $7,237.
Which the 4,500 is the cash bail that I just referenced, forfeiting those two individuals.
Now, 2020, the amounts was down, but 2020 was also the beginning of COVID. We did not have much court scheduled other than new cases. We did have court, but we didn't have a lot of court. We weren't bringing a lot of people in. So I'm guessing that's why that amount was down.
One question I have, do you have a receivables amount or not?
I do. It's a little frightening. The receivable amount as of yesterday, $209,000.
And that's over several years.
That's since we started forfeiting bail. This is a cumulative amount.
Okay, so
It's
that goes
not
back
broken
maybe
down.
a
This
decade.
could go back 20 years.
Okay. And collections on that is done how?
Collections is the same as we do basically for fines. We do a tax intercept. We attempt to collect from people as much as we can. We do tax intercept these quicker than we do fines. As soon as a bail forfeiture is ordered, we send it in for tax intercept. Because generally there's a warrant out for the individual at that point also. So we just immediately tax intercept it.
So, this shows up as a revenue line in your budget.
Correct.
And and the courts have the authority to return, reinstate the signature bond if it's within a certain period of time. They come back and show up, they miss an appearance, the next day they show up. Courts typically won't keep that forfeiture in place. In the past, I've had courts say, well, there's X number of dollars that are on file, this bond violation is not worth the entire amount, but will forfeit 10% or 20% of it, and then that person has to repost that portion if they want to get back out. And so I just wanted to bring this up as kind of an FYI, because it's part of the budget process, because it becomes a revenue line in the clerk's budget, but it's a process that the courts, the district attorney's office, and the clerks are all involved in, and it's something that's kind of in the minutia of it all, and want to bring it up to speed on.
And unlike fines, this money goes to the county as opposed to being sent into the state. It's
correct.
local.
100%.
Although if there's restitution ultimately owed, that restitution would come out of any bond forfeited first, right?
Oh, definitely. If there's anything actually to the court, then that would be taken out of it first, right?
Is that money earmarked for anything special or just goes into the general fund?
General.
Any questions?
Thank you. That was short. That was short.
I'm taking my cues from the sheriff, who criticizes me every time I talk about how much I say.
Just well, I would bring that up, that's all.
From the banker.
The sheriff's office.
There's two topics on the agenda today. One is contracting, no changes, no updates. The second one, recruitment, retention, staffing issues.
Sorry, Sheriff,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna assume it's gonna be under contracts, jail contracts. And notice that audit, we had like 18,000 last month for beds in 3 counties.
Yeah, be about right. Be about right. That, those
Seems to be creeping up.
Well, it fluctuates. We had a month that was down a little bit. The month before, we had less people in the facilities. We were able to have them here. It goes back and forth there a little bit, but
And I'm correct that it's Fond du Lac, Jefferson, and
Fond du Lac, Green Lake, and Klomburg.
Greenland.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So, I have some good news for recruitment retention. The HR committee, as some of you may be aware, made a determination to approve weekend incentives of $2 an hour from Friday at 6 p.m. until Monday at 6 a.m. To assist with retention of staff. They also approved the retention bonus for staff in the amount of $1,000 in April and $1,000 in July after each quarter, but they have to have worked for the entire quarter before they can receive that. And that information was passed out to staff, and I've had a really positive reception from our staff. In fact, our jail administrators and even some of the employees have reached out to me to say thank you, and they're actually telling me they feel like they've turned a corner. And the pendulum always swings in just about everything everywhere. There's always a pendulum. You get some down times, you got some high times, and we're on that upward swing right now. Staff are in the 12-hour shifts now. They have adjusted to them, and even some of those that were, this is gonna suck, I don't wanna be here for this, are saying, this is really good. It took me a little bit to adjust to it, but it's what we predicted would happen. They are I mean, they're not coming to me to tell it, they're going to some of the other staff, and I think there'll be a little while before they will come to me to say those things, but our deputy jail administrators especially are telling me that the staff are saying this is working out really, really well. It has greatly reduced the amount of overtime that we have, so much so that our part-timers that are working are saying, hey, I want to work. So there's the ordered overtime is very minimal. There is some overtime. Some of the overtime slots don't work for some of the part-timers to work, but things are going very well. As of right now, you recall a couple weeks ago we had 14 vacancies. Right now we have 11. We have hired a few more this week. We have 3 conditional offers outside of those 11. We have 3 conditional offers that we have made in the last week and a half, which means they need to go through a psychological before we can bring them on board. I have 4 more in background. We're thinking probably 2 of those will pass the background. So we're waiting on those. We've got 2 others who are out filling background packets right now. And we have 1 more applicant that we're interviewing next week. So things in the interview and recruitment area are going really, really well. I got an email here from one of our staff that I would like to read to you. She sent it to me last week, Saturday, and I thought it would be, after hearing some of the down things, hearing something positive and showing you what I'm telling you is true would be helpful. Hope you're enjoying the day. It's been a while since I've touched base with you, so I decided I'd take time out to do so. Things around here seem to be going the right way. New officers being hired and trained, a little dinero coming our way tends to bring positive vibes, so thank you. With the money, I'm going to Arizona for 5 days, as I like to do every spring, but could not afford to until we got this money, so thank you. It's much needed vacation from life for me. I haven't heard any negative conversation lately, and that's a huge plus. I did just refer someone here as well, and I hope she'll be an asset to this place of hire. Same person told me about a month and a half ago, because of a lot of the negative conversation that was out there, the uncertainty about retention of staff. She didn't know that she could refer anybody here. That attitude has changed here in the last month and a half, and I think a lot of that had to do with what happened with the HR committee. So one more example. Share one more thing here, and it just slipped my mind. The training. We are also at a point here that is going to be very helpful. We have 9 people right now who are currently in field training. So they're not actually taking up a spot in the schedule or filling a hole in the schedule. They are training side by side with somebody else. Most of them are going to be coming off of training in March and early April. And that will be a huge boost to the amount of people we'll have in the facility to cut down on overtime even more and get us one step closer to being able to reopen Pod H. If things go like they have in the last week and a half, over the next 3 months, there might be a chance we might be able to reopen in summer once we get a few more people trained. But that's a bit of an optimistic thought. We have a really good luck over the last several weeks. We hope that continues and we'll be able to get back to normal. But I will tell you that the morale and the attitudes of staff on that side, in the sheriff's office, has been really, really good for quite a while now. The jail they're making it through a tough time, and they're coming out. We're in a really good spot right now, and that pendulum has been on the way up. It's real positive right now.
Good. It's great to hear.
Yeah. One other note, we did have Captain Bruger retire on Tuesday after 37 and a half years here. Very long career. Just great friend, great. He's my first lieutenant when I started here, and after I became sheriff, I was able to promote him to captain, and he's just one of those guys that you could trust to be a great leader, and even when we didn't agree, he wouldn't be shy about sharing that with me, and that was great. We had a great relationship. Long time captain. Finally got to retire, and his wife actually finally let him retire. I think is the great way to put that. He will be greatly missed, and we've started that process for filling that. We actually had the process started this week. So,
Thank you.
Questions for the sheriff?
Jim, I went up to the Teresa meeting, for they were reviewing their police contract. What did they report back to you, that they're not gonna go with the sheriff, or they're still delaying the decision?
they're still looking. They haven't made any decisions yet. They're comparing things right now.
Who put the financial stuff together for them for their proposal? Was that you or Dave Elmer?
That was a collaboration of Dave Ellinger and Scott Middlestead. I believe Dave was at the meeting when we were talking about that, because he was very much involved. He and Mackenzie were both very much a part of that. Yeah.
This one's different than Reeseville because, of course, you're going to provide a vehicle.
Yeah, absolutely, totally different.
And do you agree with these vehicle costs or not? Have you seen them? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Is it okay if I reach out to Middlestead and
Yeah.
see how we come up with them, okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And it's unfortunate Dave isn't here anymore, because Dave was the one that really put that together. Scott didn't really put that together at all. That was mostly Dave Ellinger that gave input on how we need to do those figurings. So,
Well, we still have access to them.
we do, yeah, absolutely, but yeah, that was very much a collaborative effort there.
It's my understanding, we got an LTE arrangement with him, so we'll reach out to him, so.
Good, good.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Sheriff. Sure.
What's that?
When might he reopen? You know,
H?
Sorry for that.
Optimistically, I think I can say if things keep going the way they are, I'm hoping July, if everything goes well. And that's making sure we can get people trained, successfully trained. But again, that's optimistic. So we'll see. We're continuing to analyze it, and that happens. The thing to think about is once we get that pot open, remember that we may not be able to fill it right away, because I can't just pick up the phone, call the feds and say, okay, we're open. It may take some time to refill that, but we'll do it as quickly as we
When
can.
opening that, won't that bring some of these prisoners from Columbia County back here?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So that will save some of those costs. Yep,
All right,
absolutely.
Thank you.
Medical examiner.
Morning.
Good morning.
The only thing I have on the agenda is an update on what we talked about last month was the Green Lake Initiative. Just letting you know, we don't have a contract, nothing like that. Next week, I'm going to go up and talk to their law enforcement committee, JPP meeting, whatever they call it. Kind of give them some numbers, give them an overview of what the medical examiner's office is, kind of what services we provide, so that they can make a decision. Pardon me. They'll take it to their, if they feel that's the way they want to go, they'll take it to their county board on the 15th, the same day that we meet, our county board meets, and they'll make a decision. Then we bring it back to you at some point after that.
Would you just review what's taking place here, what you got?
Oh, yeah, sorry. So Green Lake County contacted us and asked that we provide medical examiner services for them. Last year, their coroner died,
Right.
and they haven't, so they've decided that they want to switch to a medical examiner system. They have to do that before papers are taken out for the next election. This is the election year for the coroner. So they've asked us to give them some numbers to talk about providing medical examiner services for them. If we do that, the goal would be to hopefully hire somebody in their county to act as deputies
For you.
for us.
Okay.
There would be some times where, we would, I would probably have to be up there. There's certain death scenes that I do have to respond to. But we would try and recruit up there if we could.
This will not interfere with what you do here, or call you away during a period of time here. You'd have somebody to do that, right?
That's what we want, yes.
Right.
Obviously, having never worked in Green Lake County, I don't know what recruitment's like up there.
Yeah. They don't either. They're used to Columbia County, but not up there.
Yeah, so, I'm going to remain optimistic that we'll be able to do that.
Some, yeah.
I just have to go on my experience. I did have a person leave here, and I posted the job. And within 8 hours of posting the job, I had a person with a bachelor's degree in forensic science apply.
Oh, great.
So, who's not a Dodge County resident but wanted to come here. So, even for an on-call position. So, and then the following day, so last night then, I had another person who was finishing up with an associate's degree in forensic science who would want to come here for an on-call position. So I'm hoping that,
Great, yeah.
harder with, that translates over to Green Lake County. So
Thank you.
that was,
If I could say one thing too, that we've had a couple discussions internally and also discussions with Green Lake officials regarding this, the county board chair, the administrator, the court counsel. And so we've put some numbers together, but part of this we want to convey is that we've done a good job internally estimating what the expense would be if this would take place. And that information's been forwarded to Green Lake County, but the goal is, if this would go forward, and that's an if at this point, that all of the Dodge County costs would be covered through an agreement with Green Lake County. And that's the part that we're not sure how this is all gonna play out, but just want to convey that we've sent financial calculations to them. And so they're reviewing them, and that's, I believe, gonna be part of that discussion on Wednesday. And ultimately, the Green Lake County Board has to decide if they're going to transition from an elected coroner to a medical examiner. And that decision hasn't been made yet, and it's anticipated that they'll make that decision on March 15th at their county board meeting. Because they're under the same scenario that that decision would need to be made prior to, I believe it's April 15th, when papers could be circulated for the coroner position. So they're in a little bit of a time constraint, and in conversation with their county board chair, it appears that there would be a willingness, if this isn't decided on March 15th, that there might be a special meeting called at some point to deal with that. But so there's quite a bit still unknown at this point, whether this will move forward. And the consensus through our last discussion with them is that right now we're kind of standing pat, Dodge County is, and waiting for Green Lake to decide which direction they're gonna go, because it isn't for certain, as if we sit here today on March 4th, that they're gonna transition to a medical examiner. That decision hasn't been made yet. And if they elect to stay with a coroner, then nothing will happen. And the coroner position would be, right now, it's subject to an appointment by Governor Evers to appoint someone to fulfill that term of coroner, and that hasn't happened yet, and that there was an application deadline, I believe in early February, which was then extended. And so I don't know the status of that, just to fulfill the existing coroner's term. And the plan is with the contract that if there is that transition, that this would start in January of 2023. And part of it will hinge on, as PJ had stated, will really hinge on whether there's on-call personnel from Green Lake County. To really make this work, that has to happen. Without it, it's going to be very, very challenging if there isn't on-call deputies that reside in Green Lake County. That's going to be really crucial to whether this is successful or can proceed.
Is there is there long-range plans to use us indefinitely, or just until they can get their own medical examiner?
Well, that's a good question, and we really don't know that at the onset, looking at a annual contract, so I don't know if that certainly could happen. I don't know if that's their plan. That's a good question that I don't know if it can be answered at this time. If maybe after 2 or 3 years they want to do their own, we don't know that. And I don't think they know that either. That's a very good question that's unanswered at this point.
Any other questions?
PJ, who's providing services for Green Lake County now?
So they had one deputy coroner. They had, Dan was the coroner who died. They had Dan, and then they had a gentleman named Bill, who was their deputy coroner. He's been on 24/7, 365. He has no interest in becoming coroner.
How about, I mean, I know you and I talked, would he be an on-call or a part-time person up there then, perhaps?
I have heard just yesterday afternoon, I heard that he potentially may want to stay on.
Okay.
So that was good news, that he might want to stay on.
And if I remember right, they don't have a lot of cases compared to Dodge County.
So I was looking at the number of deaths in Green Lake County, total number of deaths. Now, it appears that most of them get reported. And Green Lake County has about 250 deaths annually. So, and so maximum, you probably have about 250, a little plus or minus there. And around 150, if you use our numbers, our percentages, cremations. That number's a little harder to tease out. I go by percentage. You assume about 60% of people get cremated. So we have maybe 250 deaths reported, so that'd be that number of investigations, and 150 cremation exams.
This is a silly question, sort of, but I mean, we have fees associated with, right, associated with all of our services, right? You know, if you do a cremation, right? it's
For
like-
cremations, we do.
But there's, I mean, if I remember the budget, there's like a body removal fee, and, I mean, there's a list of half a dozen fees, I think, under your category, whatever you.
So those are wages. So like the body removal.
Well, those are fees that you pay
Oh.
your people, or?
Okay, I know what you're talking about. There's two that have very similar names, so we might be talking about two different things. There is a body removal fee, and that's the, when an inmate passes away, the DOC has to pay for all of our expenses, and that's the cost that they pay. But there is a removal fee that's part of the pay schedule for the deputies as well. They both may even have the same name.
Rates and fees is one. I guess my question was, you know,
Pardon me.
well, let me get, are those factored into that contract that you'd have with your medical exam? Autopsy and toxicology, laboratory report?
Yes.
$125.
Yeah.
Body removal, $300. You know, a CD fee, $25. Cremation, $175. I assume,
Well, so,
how would we handle that stuff if we're providing those services? for
okay,
Green Lake
so
County?
if we have their contract, right? And if, for cremations, that's probably the easiest one to show. Or to talk about. If they have a cremation, a person pays a cremation permit fee.
Yeah.
We would collect that as revenue.
Okay.
Okay. And generally, cremation fees, that's probably one of the largest portions of the revenue. That body removal fee, that's relatively minor.
I just remembered.
Yeah, the cremation one is the one that's, however, we have to charge the rate that Green Lake currently has. We can't raise it because of the statute.
Well, I would think
Because
we'd have to work with them to make their fees, create fees that's similar to ours and then match.
They
ours.
have the same fees, they're not necessarily the same rate
Okay,
because of the statute.
all right.
you remove the bodies, or you leave that up to the funeral home, or is it kind of a mix?
Well, so if the medical examiner's office does not accept jurisdiction of a case.
Okay.
So if a person passes away and they're, pass away at home,
Yeah.
you're sick, you have whatever, maybe you're on hospice. Pass away at home, you have a natural disease, we're not going to pick up that person, there's no need for us. If we go and there's a reason for us to accept jurisdiction, not natural death, we're doing an autopsy or something like that, then we would remove that person. If we remove that person though for like an autopsy, we're not charging a family any removal fees or anybody any removal fees. Just,
Thank you.
my staff gets paid for doing the work. But we're not charging anybody for that.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Yeah.
I got one for him when we're done. Oh, reference coroner's position.
Next meeting is April 1st. That's not a joke. That is when the meeting is.
I have a conflict.
Are you gonna be here? You said
Yes.
it's not a joke.
Yes, that'll be my last meeting. I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So,
Motion. And a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Meeting is adjourned.